Okay, we are in Finding Common Ground Season 4, and in this season, we wanted to really spotlight a whole range of practitioners. They may not even see themselves as practitioners or identify with that label, but we see them as people who are using a skill, they're trying to practice something so that they can solve a particular social problem. And they have like a really specific insight or a specific practice that we believe a lot of other practitioners out there could learn from. So for this episode, we are speaking to one of our resident partners of Common Ground. We're speaking to Li Seng of Green Nudge.
Hello.
Hello. So, Li Seng, why don't you kick this off by giving us like just a very quick introduction of who you are, what you do for work, so that someone who's never heard of you like gets a grasp of who you are.
I guess I'll describe myself as someone who's interested in the intersection of environmental sustainability and human behaviour. My company currently works on designing and developing projects relating to the environment, helping companies and communities to improve the environment through many of such projects, right? So it could look like cleanups, it could look like workshops, it could go a bit more in-depth in terms of an engagement with a corporate over a few months or a few years. And it could also be something that goes beyond just about supporting the environment. How can we consider changing some of the behaviours and attitudes on how we see the environment?
Would you call yourself a practitioner in the sustainability field, or that's you would describe it totally differently?
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a conventional sustainability practitioner.
Okay.
I'm not the probably won't call myself an activist, a climate activist per se. I think when we say that, we think about Greta and all, right? I think we'd like to say ourselves as a bit more on the really more on the behaviour side. So we're not so much focused on just the impact itself, but hopefully having a chance to invite people, including those who are currently not in this space, to say, hey, actually, it's worth a try, or the experience wasn't that bad. I don't mind coming again. So getting the people from the 0 to the 1, the 0.5 if any.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long would you say you have been in the business or in the sector of trying to nudge people to consider a greener life?
I mean, just numerically, data-wise, 7 years, right? I think I'd like to say go beyond that as well in terms of the work that I'm currently doing, the work I'm doing before, working in the social enterprise space.
Yeah.
And even probably before that, when I was in the public sector, right? Working on regulatory work. Completely different work altogether, getting people to consider how they might look at investments or how the people who are selling insurance are doing it in a more reasonable, in a proper manner. So all these were, I guess, something that I was very keen on, the behavioural side of things.
Okay.
Right? How do I get people to look at it not just directly, but perhaps some of the things that they're missing out? To be honest, it was really also because at that workplace itself, my space was just next to the pantry, right? So you just see so much trash being piled up day in, day out. And I wasn't so much concerned about the trash. I was concerned about how it was an elderly cleaner auntie who had to clean up after us. So clearly it was not so much about the knowledge itself. Education plays a part, but I believe the behaviour play a bigger part, right? To get the educated colleagues of mine to also go greener in terms of the environment. Yeah. Of course, because of the nature of the work then, it's not necessarily environment/behaviour. I decided to also take a pause and just went out, try something else after that.
So that's when you crossed over from the public sector into like the people sector. The people sector per se, to do your own green agency, is that what you would call it? Or?
So interestingly, when I tried to move along, I actually joined a program that invited me to learn a little bit more about Singapore's scene. And then there's an internship component.
Yeah.
And that was when I got posted to a social enterprise then that was working with persons with disabilities. I never thought I've gone there. In fact, when I was choosing the selections and companies, I was like, nope, this is not, I'll never come into this organization.
Yeah.
And there I was, right? Into working with that organization for quite a while.
Yeah.
But again, it was helpful for me to understand, first and foremost, even as I'm doing good, as we are doing good, we realize that we can't just do it for free. There are costs coming along.
Yeah.
I had a very good understanding of how even doing good has a price to pay.
Yeah.
And somebody has to pay the price in terms of both monetary and the work involved, right? And if you want to do good work, you must pay the people fairly. right, to
Yes.
get people in. And that was where I realized a social enterprise model was probably what was helpful for me to guide me in what I was doing today. Right. And after about a year or so in the social enterprise, I moved out because of an opportunity to start my own project that turned into a company later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so for this episode, what we're gonna focus on is not so much talking about the green side or sustainability side of the of your work, but I wanted to understand a bit more of your interest in teaching practitioners out there, or people who don't see themselves as practitioners, but they do want to do good work, not necessarily green work, just good social impact work. And I was very struck that you felt this need to teach people how to, quote unquote, slay the funding game, right? You really wanted to get them to understand certain things about the way funding is done, the way grants are done. Maybe help us understand why that was such a big thing for you. What got you interested in teaching this thing, which is not green, but it's certainly part of like your wheelhouse of like, I need to talk to people about this.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wasn't quite sure as well. I mean, I benefited from a grant myself,
Yeah.
at the very start, getting myself on board into the green space. I think having been around for maybe 6-7 years, it's just starting to realize that many people come in really excited, very very keen to make a change in their respective spaces. And after a while, you realize that after one or two years, they all disappear already, or they're all either burned out, or that the fact is they have run out of their own cash, their own
Yeah.
energy per se,
Yeah.
or that the amount of time they spend to fundraise for their own money seems to
Yes.
take more than the change that they can make,
Yes.
right? And yet, on the other hand, in Singapore especially, there's so many grants or support out there from various partners, the agencies, the public agencies, corporates, and I thought that it was a good way for us to just meet at the middle, right? How and if one of the challenge was about getting the money, how
Yeah.
do we do so in a way that convinces your fund giver that your proposal makes sense,
Yeah.
and that you also take into account some of the things that we don't often think about in terms of the budget and things like that, right? I think it was also quite telling that my initial organization that gave me the grant ran a couple of public workshops, ran a couple of public grants, and then towards the end of their grant, they told me, actually, we're not going to do this again next year, because the quality of our grant applications received has gone down.
Yeah.
It's also very hard for us to understand, is it still useful to give money?
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought that was a pity, Here we have an organization, so much money to give, so
Yeah.
much good intention to give.
Yeah.
People want to make big difference.
Yes.
Yeah, but maybe the challenge is really articulating himself. How do you share in a way that doesn't come across as too idealistic or promise everything under the sun, and then just for this small amount? And again, it doesn't seem very feasible as well. Each time I do this again with different organizations or even with different individuals, it makes a lot of sense to understand how a certain grant's being designed.
Yeah.
Can it be designed better to give out more effectively?
Yeah.
Right. And again, the grants, we're not talking about millions of dollars. We're talking about just, relatively small amount of money that an organization could give. We're not thinking that it's a huge investment that will be lost, you see.
Right.
Right. If they're able to give out small amounts and support others,
Yeah.
actually that change can actually be quite powerful collectively.
So what in your world, would you consider like this is a small amount for any funder to dispense and should be done relatively easy?
The immediate mind, the government lens comes in, anything below ITQ amount will be a very helpful amount, right? Generally, if you're able to give $1,000 to $5,000, in fact, I would
Okay.
say it's a sizable amount for sure. For lots of organizations to do things, for projects to do things, but from
Yeah.
an organization point of view, it's not too bad. It's probably something you might do for a team building event or
Yes.
whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And it's digestible enough to be able
Okay.
to provide.
So
Yeah.
we're talking here about like grants under $5,000.
Yeah.
That's the context of our conversation on this grants thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to really go stretch a little, I think
Yeah.
anything that's 4-digit below 10,000, I would
Okay.
still say that it's quite doable, right?
Actually, what you're sharing reminds me of this insight that we got through our work in this Common Ground Civic Center, where we work with quite a lot of practitioners. And from all of the conversations we've been having with all these organizations, we realized that the most sustainable version of social impact work really depends on working at the intersection of like three major stakeholders. One is the funder, two is the practitioner doing the work, and three is the chosen community of impact, right?
Yep.
And the most sustainable version of social impact work takes care of all three interests jointly, and any other permutation is not as sustainable, right? Someone will bear too much of a cost. Like what you were sharing, if you work at just the intersection of the practitioner and the community, and there isn't a funder around who wants to fund the good work,
Yep.
then what usually happens is the practitioner themselves becomes a funder.
Yeah.
They cough up the money out of their own pocket.
Exactly.
Very unsustainable because not enough practitioners are loaded with that much resources that they can
For sure.
spare.
For sure.
Right?
And this is often
Yeah.
the case. Maybe at the start, many people would think that don't worry, I can sustain it on my own.
Yeah.
I think when you drag it out, I totally agree. It then becomes not sustainable at all.
Yeah, and it's also a bit of a shame because as you shared there might be other other funders out there
Yeah.
who are willing to consider funding that work, but maybe they didn't know, or just something like didn't fit. So that's one. Like the other permutation that's very common is you have a community that is ripe to be impacted. You have a funder who's fully prepared to fund something totally in alignment with the community, but the practitioners aren't necessarily showing up for the job because it doesn't meet the practitioner's interests. It could be because the funding is not commensurate to the amount of work from the practitioner, so it's not like a fair funding. It could also be that the way the funding is done, it doesn't align with the practitioner's own philosophy of how to practice it.
Yep.
So basically the practitioners say like, no, thank you. Right? So we summed up that insight as like the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are just done. They don't want to do it anymore.
I mean, when I hear you say that, it really reminds me of my own experience with one of these grants, right? I mean, we have got people very supportive, wants to support by providing the monetary funding.
Yeah.
We've got an identified community.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps it was pretty not well articulated in terms of what the support could go towards after a while. We found ourselves really like, are we doing this correctly? Where are we going with this?
Yes.
What's the timeline actually? We were just quite unsure, confused.
Yeah.
And later became quite frustrating in fact, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to do this again. But looking back, such a good opportunity really to go further if we can and really do that work that we wanted to set out to do in the first place.
Yeah, so it's a shame because like a lot of good, skillful, experienced practitioners eject from the impact game.
Yeah.
Right? And don't answer the call to funding because it just doesn't align with their interests. So the final permutation that is unsustainable is when the funder is very interested. They're there with the money.
Yeah.
The practitioner is like, I'm all on board with that. We're totally aligned. Let's go with this like lovely impact project. And they forgot to consult what's in the community of impact's interest, right? So it could look like we have an all-funded thing, but no one's showing up for the program. Or you have the wrong people show up for the program, not the community you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the community does turn up, but it didn't meet their interest. So they may come for the event, but they are left like a bit like cynical or like, this doesn't work for us. And that's a shame. And we called that insight like you can take community money to do community things that the community didn't ask for.
Yeah.
Which is like also a very common we think scenario. Yeah.
That's very helpful to kind of just frame that.
Yeah.
It's easier right now to understand how, it really has to intersect all three areas, right?
Yes.
In order to be more sustainable.
Yeah, so it's an incredibly difficult little sweet spot to to operate from, but we have to, because if you don't work in the intersection of all three, then you're just not going to get the impact work that you desire.
Yeah.
And it's with that in mind that I want to explore with you your concerns about funding and grants, right? And for the sake of this conversation, we will bucket it to grants which are under $10,000. That means not the high stake multi-million dollar
Yeah.
grants, but it's really like 10K and below.
Yep.
Possibly an individual funder could cough this up.
Yeah.
Even,
exactly.
right? So maybe we'll start off with, what are you noticing in the Singapore scene about the relationship between grants and social impact work?
It sounds cliche. It's a very love-hate relationship,
Okay.
right? We want to work with you, and then when you want to work with each other, you realize that, there's so many things that we need sorted out, and we
Yeah.
wish that we didn't start, or we wish that we have spoken about this much earlier. Sometimes when we're working with each other for the very first time, we're still trying to know each other. Sometimes
Yeah.
we want to ask a little bit more about what have you done before, right? Or how is this particular project going to affect people, and how many people would that be, in order for me to ascertain how I should work with the practitioner.
Yeah.
And because of that, it tends to, from a practitioner's point of view, it can be more of like, but I just want to try something new. Why do I have to provide a new, test and proven idea at this stage? Especially when it's a relatively small amount. Right, so that can be quite a challenge when we're having a conversation, but we're
Yeah.
speaking at different frequency here.
Okay.
Right? I want to support you, but tell me what you have done before. Right?
Yeah.
I want to try and do something, but then you're asking me to tell me whether this has been effective. But I'm here to try and show that it could be effective.
Okay.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is there might not be, in some situations, there might not be clarity from the funder and the practitioner about what is the intention of this funding.
Yeah, it could
right?
be on that.
So if the funding was earmarked for tried and tested solutions, then a practitioner who wants to try something new and untested perhaps shouldn't apply for that.
Yeah, and
Right.
sometimes it's not very clear in the requirements as well, right?
Yeah.
So it can be quite confusing, and it's a pity when we have done all the necessary work to apply for it just to be rejected on that front. Right. I think the second one is also more of how I thought that this comes out quite commonly, which is how many funds look at supporting initiatives, projects in a very tangible manner.
Okay.
So they're very happy to support you in terms of things like food, trying to help to share. If you need any materials, we will be able to fund those things.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to things like the intangible stuff, the manpower, right?
Okay.
The glue that brings the projects together,
Yeah.
the secret sauce itself, that those kind of things tend not to be quite easily identified, and therefore not easily funded as well. Right? And I would say, I guess there's some merits to some of these when many projects are funded by public money.
Yeah.
But I think I would say that as a society, we have quite a lot of projects that are really funding the very basic necessities already. I wish that it would be helpful if we can go beyond that, go beyond the basic projects and look at supporting work that can also involve people, right? To facilitate or to design it or to engage further, right? Yeah, I think many existing grants also tend to look at just numbers, right? How many people have this project anticipated to reach from a social media front? Again, I think those have been effective for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
I wish you can go a bit further on that.
Yeah. So what if I hear this filtered through the Venn diagram that we talked about, right? What I'm hearing is we have a funder who, I have some money here and I'm thinking in the interest of the community. Right? I want the community, the chosen community of impact, to benefit the most from this amount of money.
Okay.
And what I am less or not concerned about is the interest of the practitioner.
Yeah. Yep.
And like a funder may not be aware that that's the message they are sending, that the funder cares about the funder's interest, the funder cares about the community's interest, the funder is not that aware or keen to hear about what's in the practitioner's interest, which leaves practitioners feeling a bit affronted, not taken care of, and that can actually lead to the funder not having practitioners want to show up for the next time they do like a grant call
Exactly.
and funding call.
And
right?
after a while, you find that, actually I thought I'm doing good work, but why is it that nobody's stepping forward?
Yeah.
Right. Again, I think as a first-time applicant, it could be that, okay, no worries, I will just do what I can, just try it out. But when this comes in again and again, and from probably different grants or different funds, you
Yeah.
notice that then who's paying the price to do all this work?
Yeah.
I can't be the one thinking of the ideas and yet I'm the one having to do it all for free. And again, I'm not trying to make a huge profit for this. I'm also trying to cover some costs for that.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's,
I think one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you did come from the government, right? You
Yep.
did work there. So from your experience, what would be your own guess of why when the government maybe writes up grants like that, like what assumptions might it be operating from
okay.
that are maybe not aligned with what practitioners are operating from?
Oh, okay. I have to clarify. I'm speaking for myself here. I cannot represent the whole
of
government,
course.
right? Especially after so many years. I think it's easy to first and foremost account for some of these. It's
Yeah.
easy to account for, line item wise, certain food, certain tangible items. Very easy to check off once I know, and they're easy to account for it.
Yeah.
I know you have used it kind of way.
Yeah.
Right. Probably we didn't expect that coming up with a proposal or program takes so much time. We probably have thought of it as, these ideas are very simple to think about, right? Isn't it like very easy to just come up with an event to bring together the community? When you have all this, wouldn't the community just come along in that sense? Right? But I think literally coming into my space right now, we realize that we also need to think about the user experience. We need to think about the messaging about this. We also need to also ensure that we have the right people to invite residents or community partners to be part of that conversation, to facilitate the conversation well as well. I think those are nuances that the old me would have missed out because I didn't quite see it.
Okay.
I don't know of how these were even part of the conversation in the past, right?
Yeah.
We always just get an event organizer to plan out everything, and then there will just be one bill from the whole event organizer.
Yeah.
Right. I wish that a funder could see an applicant as not a vendor per se.
Yes.
It's not procure a vendor service,
Yeah.
right? Because you expect the vendor to do everything if we need to.
Yeah.
But in this case, you're working with somebody who is likely to be quite new in this.
Yeah.
The group, the initiative, the individual may miss out a portion of it, but also recognize that there are certain parts of that work itself that cannot be priced in a very clear, linear manner as well, right? Just because we clock in this amount of time, there will have this amount of results. There are bound to be some failures, there's some mistakes, but those need time to also surface. And it doesn't mean that it didn't work, means that the project has failed, and therefore we shouldn't give out any money as well, right? In terms of a milestone.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that you float that up, because I think funders can consider what is the relationship they want to have with the practitioner.
Yeah.
And if they even see the grant applicant as a practitioner. Because you're right, if I see them as a vendor, a dispenser of services, then I might not be interested in a relationship with them. I might not see that it's my responsibility to understand them, build them up. I would see it as a very transactional relationship. I give you $10, you do $10 worth of service. Yeah, because if I'm a funder who sees that I want to do social impact work, and I have a practitioner who can execute on the work well, then I might be more open to seeing what's in the practitioner's interests. So that's one thing that came up for me. And I think the second is, I don't think many funders out there consider practitioners as a community to be impacted.
Okay.
What I would love to normalize for funders is to consider that you are funding two circles of impact. The primary circle of impact is the practitioner that you are partnering to do the social impact work. Because funders have an extraordinary amount of power to shape a practitioner's behavior, if you like. Right? Your money, your funding sort of dictates what a practitioner should prize, should pay more attention to, because you will fund certain approaches but not fund other approaches. So there's a lot of power in that. And if you partner with practitioners who are in alignment with your approach to social impact, then you can consider that you are capacity building this first circle of impact, the practitioners, so that they can have a better secondary circle of impact, which is the communities of whatever that you want to impact. Right? But I think not many funders today see that. Yeah.
Totally agree. And I would say that a lot of such realizations come after, let's say, second or third time working with each other. I mean, you really have to have a chance to know each other first, working in different situations, right? In order to understand how we can better support each other. Otherwise, just because it didn't work, therefore let's find another vendor or let's find another partner to work with this with. And then we have a missed opportunity here in understanding how to better align those objectives together, because those take time to surface. I wouldn't be able to share everything with my funder at the start. Right. And I also thought that it's also helpful to share that even for the practitioner per se, they also need to understand how a particular funder works compared to the other funders as well. That takes time, right? It's not a delivery service per se. You can't just click on this and therefore this will appear. It really has to be something that you mold together with the funder.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I think that's something that I'm learning to also appreciate after all this while. Yeah. Taking care of the practitioner circle before you can take care of the rest as well.
Yeah. And I think I also want to give like a shout out for like progressive funders or funders who are taking a much more progressive, or funders who take a more like partnering perspective to how they want to do this, right? Because they do exist in Singapore, because sometimes I think practitioners here in Singapore might see it as like, oh, you're describing a thing that happens elsewhere, it doesn't happen here. But a progressive or more partnering oriented funders do exist here. I think I want to give a shout out to MCCY, who's co-funding this civic center that we've been running for the last 10 years, because they did take a very let's partner with the practitioner perspective on it. It was from the start has been a very respectful, very dignifying, very like wonderful working experience where funder, and that's the government, and practitioner, which is me, we sit down right at the start of the project. Let's talk out what is a certain outcome that we both can agree on. Maybe the outcome is not crystal clear black and white, but we more or less agree on it. We more or less agree on a particular set of KPIs to track, because we have to be accountable to the amount of funding given to us, and it's quite substantial. And let's do this together. Let's learn together. And every quarter, every year, every 3 years, there is a relook at what's working, what's not working. Let's adjust along the way. And I love it because it's a sign that it is happening in Singapore. It is possible. And we need more of that.
Yeah, we need more of that for sure. Can I say that we are, maybe for us, Green Nudge as well, we are part of the community that comes along from this project itself. So thank you, MCCY, giving us the opportunity to grow organically too. It literally gave us the time and space to then figure out ourselves where exactly are we going as well, right? Even just having opportunity for us to be in this circle, this network itself has been helpful. Just really just to know how do you do this thing? Can we find ways to work together? I never have thought of that. That would not be the top of mind when I first started my own project. But having that chance to do that subsequently, and then to have the signal to say, and it's okay if it doesn't take place, or you take some time to figure out how you want to work together and then proceed with that. That's very assuring. That gives me the confidence to also say, time. We need some time to experiment. We need some
Yeah.
time to collaborate with each other. It can't just be planned out at the very start of the application and say by year 3 we will have 4 projects coming along, or we'll have. And I think those are good guides, goals to move towards, but it's not binding per se. And even as somebody who is benefiting from it, it really has been very comforting to know that we are being supported, but not being arm twisted to come up with those things itself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
For like a listener who is not very familiar with this Civic Center project, you can think of it from the whole Venn diagram thing, right? This Civic Center, the funder is MCCY, the government. The practitioner in this case is Common Ground. We are playing the role of a steward practitioner of a civic center where there is quite a number of different purpose-oriented organizations who are all co-located in this civic center. So if you like, the community of practitioners here is the community of impact, right? And as we support our practitioners here, they can then have like a third circle of impact. So it's like the first circle of impact from the funder's view is me, the steward practitioner. And then the second circle of impact is the practitioners who are all in this building. And that third circle of impact is all of the different communities, all super diverse, that each of these organizations reaches out to. And that is the experiment that this funder has decided to take a risk on, a calculated risk, to support for almost a decade. Right? We are in our last 3 years. And I think there's so much to unpack even in this project of what other funders can learn about how can we better support our practitioners so that they can support the communities of outreach, right? And I guess my curiosity is how can we take these principles from this larger, maybe more out there project and bring it down to these $10,000 and below grants, which, if you're a funder, you might think, why should I think so hard about my $10,000 or $5,000 grant, let me just dispense it and get it out of the way, So what would you say to that funder who is managing these like more smaller scale grants? Yeah, what is the pitch you would make to them about why they can consider a more partnering approach to designing grants?
Well, actually, maybe to a funder, a $10,000 project or less, it's really just one of the project itself. But I think as a practitioner, I see them as stepping stones. The first stepping stone could be a project that is 10,000 or below, but it gives me the chance to then go further, think bigger for a project that is probably now, let's say, 20,000 or below, right? But allowing me to have a chance to walk slowly, using these grants as stepping stones, really help in thinking bolder, wider, right? But it gives me a chance to figure out along the way. See? Right. And I already hope that a funder, just because we have worked together on a project that's been successful, please don't say, let's find a different flavor of a project again, which starts something new. I wish we can have a chance to go a bit deeper in this case, right?
Yeah.
Recently, I had a chance to go to Australia where we had a chance to speak to a couple of other community partners. We also understand how community projects are being supported. If your project was doing well, the funder is likely to support you even further. Go a bit bigger in terms of the KPI, but the numbers, it's the nature of the project itself shouldn't differ that much, right? Because they really see that if there's really some level of success, then go deeper to magnify the success if you need to amplify the success. But it shouldn't be that, okay, now that we are done with this, let's try something new because we need to fund something else that aligns with our new mission, right? That doesn't quite help when I've already established a relationship with you. A new project means I have to restart and figure out how does that make sense. Right? So I would say that to a funder who is open to looking at this, a successful project is one that increases some level of mileage over time, right? And an impact is deeper and meaningful if you can have a chance to work again and again. And that's where I wish more grants funders in Singapore can go towards.
I think like social impact really requires like persistence like a long persistence in a singular direction
Yeah.
almost, right? So say you are a funder who is like, hey, all I have in my power is the power to dispense, I don't know, say $51,000 funds. What's the big deal? What big thing can I do with it? A great question to ask is, what's the social problem you want to solve, let's say, or you want to have some level of impact on through these $1,000 grants. All right, let's just pick something very, very simple. Let's say it's I want to help the level of English proficiency of this particular block of flats.
Yep.
Let's just say it's that.
Okay.
Right? And I only have $1,000 grants to give out. Then what you can do, and I'm assuming that at that quantum, you're probably aiming at these very rookie beginner, let's say fresh from university, I got an interesting idea.
Yep.
I'm looking for $1,000 to like pull it off.
Yep.
You could cast that net there. But like if you are taking a partnering perspective and you're trying to play the long game, say you put out a grant call, 10 young people show up asking for the $1,000. They do their thing. You're sort of looking at it from an impact investor kind of perspective, right? Where I put my bets on 10 young budding practitioners. 6 turned out to be like maybe not that great. 4 turned out to be pretty interesting, amazing. You can circle back to them and either like say, have another $1,000 because I believe in you and your approach, and actually here's a bit of feedback about what I think worked really well and what I don't think works that well.
Yep.
And I want to partner you to go with your next project, right? You can either give $1,000 again or up the level. Let me give you like $3,000 now.
A different tier, if you put it that way.
A different tier, right? And you are looking at it from I'm here to cultivate the sector towards the end goal of this social impact thing. And ideally, like you give yourself like 10 years, 10 years or more to say like, well, and we will regularly track like actually what is the level of English proficiency in this block of flats after we have seed funded like a bunch of like young people to do that. I think as a practitioner, what I enjoy is seeing a funder with a very distinct point of view that they are part of the game of like trying to create social impact, rather than I am just here trying to like figure out what to do with all of this money and I don't have a very strong idea of where I want it to go.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you can also feel it from the way it's being written, the way that it's being communicated. Actually, this funder actually looks a bit more collaborative, more open. That's super helpful to also even just consider applying for some of these. One thing that comes out to me when you're sharing about all this is sometimes maybe funders like to see it from a financial perspective. I can fund you this amount because I only got this budget also from an organization for this financial year.
Yeah. So
I also can't support you beyond where you want to go in the 3 or 5 years time because my organization hasn't had a chance to think about that too. So I think even at $1,000 and stuff, recognize that it is meant to support a low-hanging project, to kickstart somebody, or even support the individual that's helping this out versus saving the world with $1,000, and therefore you must provide me with all the receipts and claims, and reimburse. And I think that's also a big portion many people don't know about grants. Certain grants will give you the money outright and say, go and do what you need to do. Don't worry about it. Some will be like, you do first, okay? Then after you give me the receipt, reimburse line by line, then I'll reimburse you. And I think it can be quite discouraging, even at $1,000 or $3,000 amount. Yeah. I remember I had to account for a water dispenser, for a project. It took me 6 months to get my accounts done for that, really, because I bought it through Carousel, where there wasn't a proper receipt. Right? So, and therefore I had to justify why I had to go through there and how much it wasn't. But it discourages so many people if you had to do this again.
I think among the progressive funders, they are quite aware of how costly impact measuring has become for practitioners. right? So the example you just cited of I want to fund you $1,000 for your work, and I also expect 100 hours of like paperwork, to just account for how you spend $1,000, right? I say this all in exaggeration, but it's also quite
It's
close
true
to the
for
truth.
some. I'm sure some people
It's
will
quite
have
close to the
experienced it.
truth,
Yeah.
right? And I guess for funders, you want to think about the costliness of the administrative processes you're putting people through. Like, is that worth the cost?
Yeah.
Right? If you are dispensing $10 million in grants and you're expecting a high level of due diligence, that's understood,
And that's reasonable. I
and
think
it's
people expect it.
reasonable. It's expected, but I think what many people don't expect with the micro grants is the level of bean counting and the level of effort that has to go into that. Like, to be very frank, when I meet a young impact practitioner, I tend to tell them to not apply for grants that are below $10,000 because I don't think it's worth the time. And I think if the young practitioner had a very good idea, I have more faith that if you share this with your friends or even just a broad community, just talk about there's a
Yep.
thing that you want to do. Honestly, $1,000 or even $10,000 is frankly pocket change for certain people out there, right?
Okay.
Or a certain group of people out there who are
Yep.
like, all right, I'm willing to put some money into your little project,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I think it's actually easier to fund your little projects that way rather than go through a government grant, which is not written in a way that makes it easy for you
Yep.
to get the money out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when you have an idea you want to try it out, right? It doesn't make sense at times to try it out really, then to be reimbursed with it. I think the idea can be a little bit warped in that sense.
Yeah.
If someone is able to provide you with some level of support, I think you also will feel a bit more heartened by the fact that, hey, actually I'm doing it really because somebody is supporting me.
Yeah.
Right? Versus trying to account for it later on and feel a bit disheartened if, let's say, certain parts went off in terms of the receipt and admin paperwork and things like that.
I think another progressive-minded funder that we can give a shout out to, because like what listeners may not know is that me and Li Seng are both part of this little community called the Philip Yeo Initiative community.
Yep.
And what binds our community together is all of us were funded right? by, I don't even know how best to describe them, but I think they are a group of friends, a group of peers maybe, who were all inspired by this former civil servant called Philip Yeo, a very, very well respected, very well esteemed man who believed in human capital, in investing in human capital and human talent. So this group of peers who were so influenced by Philip Yeo decided, let's put some money into the pot and we will have an institution do all the due diligence of how to like dispense the money. But essentially, at the core of it was, it's a group of friends who have done well enough at life to like want to give back. And they specifically wanted to give back to younger Singaporeans that they believed were doing impactful work, but maybe needed a bit of a boost for a particular project. Right? So both me and Li Seng are beneficiaries of, of this group of wonderful friends.
Thank you, PYI.
Thank you, PYI. I want the funders or potential funders out there who would never consider themselves a funder, but have $1,000, $10,000 of loose change lying around, I know you're out there somewhere, that it's actually possible. Because way back then, so the way the Philip Yeo Initiative funding is written is once you cross the 40-year-old mark, you can't apply anymore.
Yeah.
and I remember that because I was turning 40 that year when I was considering a pivot towards doing more systems-based work, right? And I happened to see like the ad for Philip Yeo initiative thing. Do you have a mad idea?
Yep.
If you do, we will fund you $20,000 for it. And it was just written in such a charming way.
Yeah.
Plus it was like, oh, 40, better apply now, right? What surprised me about this group of funders was how clear they were in their perspective that we don't want to micromanage you.
Yeah.
We don't want to police you. We are here to invest in the person, not the project.
Yeah.
And that is revolutionary.
Yeah, that was very new. I mean, I've never heard of that before.
That was like so fresh, right? And they were true to their word. It was light touch, but very present.
Yeah.
And they believe very much in mentoring the person throughout the process. You have one or two mentors like attached to you. And I share that because the 20K of grant, 10K was given right up front for you to just get your project rolling. And then the funder gave the remaining 10K also like quite fluidly, very easily.
Yeah, with minimal paperwork and stuff.
With minimal paperwork, minimal reporting.
Yeah.
They just needed like a very simple presentation, explanation of where things went, or if your project suddenly changed halfway, went in a different direction. They were supportive of that as long as...
And it's okay to move along.
And it's okay. Yeah. They even tell you upfront that even if you fail or you change direction, that's fine, but we just need to hear why, what happened, because again, they are here to fund the person, not so much the project. And we're among some of us who got that first tranche of 20K, you can actually apply for a second project, right? Similarly of 20K.
Yeah.
And I shared it because it was a very fresh look at what a group of very intentional citizens could do. They aren't an institution. They aren't an agency. They aren't they are not a company. They're a group of peers who happen to believe I can use my money to do something meaningful. And I want to do it in a way that is life-giving, that's supportive, and it really is about impact investing in they may not use that word, but I see that actually that's their intent. They want to invest in the impact makers in this country. And they're a small group, so there's only a small bunch of us that they have funded. But I think all of us are, as practitioners, are quite changed in our perspective towards funders and how the funding process should be because of our experience with them. I've said a lot about my own experience, and I'll close off my sharing before I hand it off to Li Seng. It changed my trajectory as a practitioner. Without that 20K investment, I would not have been able to explore systems-based work. And if not for them, I would not be running a civic center today in partnership with the government, So it's a big shout out to that funder for their approach and their belief. And the things I was pitching to them are a bit like, kind of like out there, it's not very conventional. So they did support innovation in a way, because they may not have completely understood what I was doing, but they were willing to take that risk on me, and I will always appreciate them for it. Li Seng, what was your experience with them?
It's the same. It's very similar in that sense, right? To be first and foremost, when you first know of this grant, know that this grant is supporting you as an individual, not just only the project, right? I came up with a project itself to look at trying to make large-scale events sustainable, the marathons and likes of it. And my submission was done 1 year before COVID started, where all the mass events couldn't be held, right? And even then, the team was still very supportive, right? Providing with the support, providing with the mentorship, and to continue with that versus saying that, oh, okay, sorry, just because COVID came along, your project cannot be carried out, therefore nothing is done. I thought that having a chance to still continue to work, pivot along with that, and given that it's also beyond my control, I think it was just that presence of the support, right? Checking on you, how you are. It's not coming to a point of nagging you and stuff, right? They're not monitoring you per se, but they're really checking with you. How are you, really? Right? That really helped me to feel that, hey, actually, I benefited from the grant, not just of the money on itself, right? But of that relationship that I've started to build up itself. I think that goes beyond that. That's in a way priceless, right?
Yeah.
You can't quite put a monetary term to it.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think that's why many of us within the POI community will continue to keep asking for sharing this initiative with others, right?
Yeah.
You know, every time the grant call comes along, we'll be very happy to invite others to come along because
Yeah.
we also want them to also have a chance to benefit from this. I can't recall trying to shout out for other grants so intentionally, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the few that we say actually we want to, and it's also because we want to give back in a certain manner
Yeah,
too.
it's true. Like when a funder acts in this way, like they're using their financial power,
Yep.
right? And let's just name it that way. There's a lot of behavior shaping power that money has,
Mhm.
right? Let's be frank with this, and the funder can use this financial power in a very life-giving, supportive, benevolent way, because this funder, this Philip Yeo initiative, they took their money and then they decided we are going to build a community of practitioners. We're going to pass on particular values, right, that we were inspired by, and we want these practitioners to propagate. So they have a clear perspective of the sort of impact they wanted to push out there, right? And I think they were successful in sowing in each of the practitioners that they have funded, like this desire to, I'm going to continue this impact outwards. I'm going to ripple it out, not just to the communities that I wanted to impact in the first place, but I want to now give back to other practitioners out there, and to do it on willingly and happily. And I think many funders out there could use practitioners as allies, not use in a terrible meaning of the word, but could use this kind of friendship. It will be good to nurture a community of practitioners who believe in your funding model, who believe in the causes you want to fund, who believe in the intent that you have for this, for all of this money you want to pour into the work.
I think what you've just described so far, really the underlying portion is just the level of trust.
Yes.
Right. I trust that you'll do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think in return, we will trust that we will get the money to do what we have promised to do as well.
Yeah.
And that I think it's quite implicit to the point whereby I don't think we really share about that in terms of our projects and stuff. We never really sign a lot of stuff to commit to all these.
Yeah.
But I think everyone promises to really just do what they can.
Yeah.
That not every project is going to be successful.
Yes.
And some of the mentors can also just let you know, actually, you shouldn't be doing this, right? I mean, you're not asking every single funder to mimic this, but to play to your strength, right? If it's an institutional funder, a corporate funder, I'm sure that there are certain parts of what you do that can also support a practitioner in their own ways.
Yeah.
Right.
I can imagine if, say you're a big healthcare group in Singapore and you have some spare change that you don't mind investing into these small little ground-up groups of practitioners running around. You want them to maybe support you in the cause of dealing with, let's say, social isolation in the HDB estate, right? In a particular bunch of blocks, right? You can use your funding in this very trust-building way. You can say hey, we're looking for 10 practitioners. It's $3,000, but if you have an idea of how to end social isolation, we're all ears. And it's not just to dispense it to anyone who shows up with a silly idea. It's to be really intentional with looking at the character, the intent, the potential of the practitioner that shows up, and then going along with them for a real partnering journey. Say here's the $3,000. Here is not just the money, but also our own intelligence, our own data on what we already know works and doesn't work for this block. Please use this information to create your solution. And then I'll check back with you every couple of months to see how it's going. And to not hold it over your head if you fail, quotation marks, but to be really interested, why didn't that work? Why don't we try this instead? And if you do that with a practitioner, I think you are really building up a longer term relationship that can actually help you make a dent in this, let's say this particular social problem here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like feeling, for a practitioner, there's nothing like feeling like there are people who also care about doing this well. Yeah.
It gets quite lonely at times, so to have a chance to have fellow practitioners coming in, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the role of the funder is not just about giving money, right? It can also just be convening some of this so that fellow practitioners know of each other's presence. Oh, you're doing this, so then can we work together? As we put the ideas together, then that's where perhaps a funder could consider supporting in a different scale altogether. Right? I find that, again, all of these happen organically because discussions happen. We have a chance to talk to each other versus trying to make everything look perfect on the surface. And then we don't dare to share our own challenges and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do really hope that some of the grants or funders could consider, designing that way, designing some initiatives that way, and then allow the magic to flow. You don't have to go too deep into the various details, and hopefully don't bucket it in terms of time frame too much, right?
Yeah.
Certain work does take time, especially if you're increasingly moving towards changing of behaviors, of attitude, of mindset. I don't think that they are defined by one financial year, 2 financial years, right? So it has to go beyond that.
Yeah,
eventually.
I'm glad you brought up like the convening power of the funder, right? Because you can bring all the practitioners that you fund together so that there's knowledge exchange, there's knowledge sharing of like, hey, this is what we are discovering through all of our different little projects in this community, say about the social isolation thing. And all the practitioners can get wiser together. And you as a funder also get wise with like what has succeeded, what has failed. Because there's a lot of lessons in failure about what are better solutions or better approaches. Yeah, and you needed that practitioner to fail to learn that.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I didn't realize. Like if we brought them on karaoke sessions, oh, no wonder they all don't want to show up for that. Turns out they all hate singing. Great.
Yeah.
I love that your project like helped us find out that. No more of that. What else can we do? So if you can convene a community of practitioners to really let's learn together collectively what can create more impact, I think like it can really like bring the impact making scene in Singapore like further than it is right now.
I'll say that would be a next step forward really in shifting many of the funds and therefore the impact itself to not just look at the immediate outcomes. Many of these would definitely have a change in the impact and how we see impact, in fact, over the years.
Well, we can talk forever about about making impact and funding and all that, and I'm sure we could have like a part 2 for this. But like I want to bring this a bit to a close. So if you could leave us with like one dream, right, of a desirable future, like I would love to see, a funder or a practitioner, like what would be your one wish?
More people like PYIs and more groups of PYIs coming along, right? We are saying about what we call microfinances, microphilanthropists.
Yeah.
If you're really willing to do good, sometimes you don't have to necessarily go through an administrative process to help others. If it can just be as simple as knowing somebody within your own community who has an idea, that'll be helpful to just pass them, not just about money, of course, right? But readily offer them help. And if it's some level of support, even that small amount actually has been really helpful. I mean, I recall some of the individuals we worked with, you know, that gesture of them offering some level of money, and we don't even recall the money sometimes, but it's the fact that they really stepped up.
Yeah.
That's very memorable. And I wish that a future like that would be how people in citizens in Singapore, organizations in Singapore are readily available and willing to support each other, be it through monetary or non-monetary support.
I think I definitely echo your dream for more micro-philanthropists to step up. I don't remember the girl's name or her initiative, but I remember someone in Singapore was seeding this idea that, hey, I don't make a lot of money, I'm not super rich, And I don't want to wait until I become a multimillionaire to become a patron of the arts. So I will make a decision to sow, I think it was like 500 or 1,000 or something. It was like a small amount of money, like per year or per 2 years.
Okay.
I want to put my skin in the game as a micro patron of the arts, a micro like art philanthropist, if you like, to say like I will put $500 in the pot. Like, please apply if like you want permission to write a poetry book, or you want to, like, I just thought it was so specific and so doable, and it just needed someone to say, I will take on this identity called funder, and I'm not going to wait until I'm a millionaire to do this.
Cool.
And I love it because, like, can you imagine what Singapore would look like if enough citizens decided that's a great use of my ticket to Japan?
Right.
Yeah,
if I just don't drink bubble tea for 20 times, I can support somebody else with
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. And that's also a different way of supporting the causes that you believe in. You may not be a practitioner, but you could be a funder, and your friend could be that practitioner that you could support.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a dream that we will leave you in this SG60 year. Yeah. So, well, we're practicing a set of different closing questions for this season. So this is like rapid fire. Go with your gut, Li Seng, right? Complete this line. If you want to change something in Singapore, you have to
realize that sustained impact needs to be sustainable on its own.
And number 2, when you look at how some people are approaching changing things today, what is a way that you have seen that you guys should stop because it's causing more brokenness and fragmentation? And what's the alternative way that you see this actually brings a more wholesome approach to things?
Stop trying to ask for free stuff, for exposure, for brand visibility. Right.
It breaks many people's hearts.
Right. And offer an honorarium if you need to, offer something in return that it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. Right. And finally, what is a community or just something that you feel really grateful for these days?
I'm really grateful that, with all of these work they've been doing, it's been a pleasure to continue to do this work with its ups and downs. It's precisely because there's ups and downs that I can feel great when it's up. And whenever it's down, you know that you've got people who can be supportive of you. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let me close this conversation with a habit I'm trying to practice on this podcast. Don't know how consistent I've been. But I'd like to end it with a gift, right? Of like the gift of this conversation. So, I'm grateful for you, Li Seng, for, I think, your persistence in a long, thankless direction called let's try and get more people thinking of green things.
Yep.
And I want to appreciate that because the scale of the issues you are looking at are tremendous. They can be really heartbreaking. And yet you have chosen to sort of like go towards there, even playing a small part and doing it with hope. I think it's not a small thing. Yeah. I know you think all the time about like, okay, when will this be the final year I decide enough of this? And if that day comes, that day comes. But for now, I'm grateful that you are part of the many practitioners out there trying to make a difference.
Thank you.
In the green sector.
Yeah. And I also would like to do this in a way so that it can be done with humor, with level of wit as well in the work that we do.
Yeah.
Right? Just make sure that if you're already doing this, might as well do it in a way that we enjoy doing it. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.